Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire on SportsGrid. Craig Mish back with you for another edition of the show. Thanks for tuning in this morning. We got a lot to cover in a short time to do it. We will have Jim Gazzale joining us coming up from Legal Sports Report, the very latest in sports betting. Also, Gilbert McGregor weighs in on the National Basketball Association, and also stick around for the entire show because we got a ton of breaking news right here at the top. We got baseball signings. We got coaches leaving the spots that they are in the National Football League. And of course, we're coming up on some very big games coming up this weekend in Super Wild Card Weekend as well. Well, one team that is not participating in the playoffs this year, the Tennessee Titans. And late yesterday, after our show concluded, we found out that Mike Vrabel is no longer going to run the club. He led Tennessee to 4 consecutive winning seasons. It's been back-to-back tough years. Vrabel could be very heavily sought after, but it's been a tough couple of seasons there with him. Who knows what the future holds for the Titans and for Vrabel as well. Some of the dominoes could fall in New England. Who knows where Bill Belichick could potentially be headed. Maybe Belichick stays in New England, but naturally that's a very big story in the National Football League as well. Now, as far as the Chicago Bears are concerned, 30 minutes ago they made it official. Matt Eberflus will return as their head coach, but he's going to have a lot of new coordinators on his staff. They have fired their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, and also their quarterbacks coach, Andrew Janico, and a lot of other offensive coaches also leaving the Chicago Bears as well. So Bears looking potentially for a new quarterback next year. We really don't know. Coach will return in terms of the head coach. Offensive coordinators definitely at this point didn't do the job on the way out and made it official today. Last night, the Miami Heat made it official. They have basically said to Eric Spoelstra, we want you here for the next decade. 8-year contract extension, $120 million to run things in South Florida. Eric Spoelstra, most feel is the best coach or one of the best coaches in the NBA, and now he's being paid like it as well as the Heat chased another playoff spot this coming season. Now, also late yesterday, we finally found out that the Chicago Cubs are interested in adding players in the free agent period. They added Shota Imanaga. He is the pitcher coming over from overseas. This is a USA Today report, which is not yet official, but Imanaga is expected to get right around $100 million and front the Cubs rotation here in 2024. So lots of new things happening here on the show. We thought we would bring them to you right here at the top. Now, let's get to the big news in the playoff games coming up this weekend. Mike Tomlin has announced that TJ Watt is not going to play this weekend in Buffalo against the Bills. Mason Rudolph, as expected, will start against Buffalo. They are 10-point favorites. It's a very low total. There are some weather indications as well for that game. Not having Watt, Steelers up against it. How about this one? The Denver Broncos say that they're open to a reunion with Russell Wilson after benching him for the last few games of the season. I mean, call me a little skeptical here, but who knows? This is coming from the Broncos. The Miami Dolphins have signed linebacker Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin. These are two players who are basically right now sitting on the couch, but the Dolphins have so many injury issues. They're adding players that aren't even playing this year so they can go to Kansas City and potentially try and upset the Chiefs. And if they do it, by the way, it's going to come in one of the coldest games ever in the history of the NFL. It could be 11 degrees is the high, and this could be negative degrees. But right now, the low is projected to be 0, and the Dolphins are 0-9 in less than 40 degrees or colder since 2017. Chiefs up to 4-point favorites, by the way, on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Okay, let's get to some college football here. Washington's great wide receiver who you saw play in the national championship game, Jalen Polk, has declared for the NFL draft. He caught 69 passes last year, over 1,000 yards. Number 2 passing attack for the Huskies last season. Also, Alabama's running back, Jace McClellan, has declared for the NFL draft. He had 890 yards and 8 touchdowns last season. He should be drafted probably second or third day. Jaden Mayava has transferred to USC. He said that he was going to transfer to Georgia. He's a former UNLV quarterback. He's made yet another change in plans. So he goes to USC. USC obviously looking for a quarterback as Caleb Williams is going to the National Football League. Auburn's head coach Hugh Freeze says he's going to be taking over play calling duties on offense. They were 11th in the Southeastern Conference last season, and with new teams coming in the SEC, all of these teams need a pretty big boost with Texas, Oklahoma, and some others entering the conference as well. Okay, we did get some good news yesterday in the NBA. Of course, we had the bad news with Ja Morant. So here's the good injury news. Tyrese Halliburton of the Indiana Pacers It's revealed he has just a light hamstring strain. They're calling it a grade 1, so this is like weeks as opposed to months. Really good news to have one of the young and up-and-coming stars back on the court in the NBA soon. Joel Embiid has missed his second straight game due to a swollen knee. With a lot of injury news, Cade Cunningham is going to be out at least 1 week due to a knee strain, and Jacob Poeltl for the Toronto Raptors is out indefinitely. He injured his left ankle Sunday in their win over Golden State. Speaking of which, if you did not see the head coach of the Toronto Raptors go off on the referees last night, stick around because I'm going to talk about that coming up a little bit later in the show. All right, sports betting news. For those of you who live in Vermont, DraftKings making it official this morning. They are launching in Vermont tomorrow. It's the 26th state in the country to launch. They're also donating $25,000 to the Arbor Day Foundation. So great news for people in Vermont as far as sports betting is concerned. Major League Baseball, by the way, has rejected a proposal to start getting paid on some of these defunct Diamond/Bally Sports broadcasts. In fact, Amazon wanted to pay $150 million to Major League Baseball to stream their games, but baseball essentially only interested in 1 year. Amazon looking for a multi-year deal. This could be very lucrative for baseball in the future, and they're not just going to do a 1 year deal here. The Marlins have hired Rachel Balkovec as their new director of player development, and Devils center Jack Hughes is expected to miss weeks with an upper body injury. Also, it's being reported this morning that young superstar Connor Bedard is going to have surgery on his jaw, which we anticipated. The time frame for his return to the ice is approximately 6 to 8 weeks for Connor Bedard. So he will have to be replaced for the upcoming NHL All-Star game, which no question he would have been playing in after having such a great start to his season. Now, for those of you getting ready for the big games this weekend and Super Wildcard Weekend, why not download our SportsGrid app? It's a great companion to all of the things that we're doing here. It gives you the very latest news, notes, odds, and everything else happening here at our network. We'll also tell you about the various shows. All you do is scan the QR code that you see right there on your screen, and it'll take you right to the SportsGrid app. It's available for iOS and Android as well. So download it now. It's the SportsGrid app, completely available. And by the way, should I mention, it is completely free as well. Okay, coming up next, we got some big news yesterday in the NBA. Ja Morant made a lot of news, of course, in the offseason, and then with his suspension into the regular season, no one was quite sure how he would respond. Came back immediately, looked fantastic for the Memphis Grizzlies, which is why his injury news is so disappointing. Where does Memphis go from here? Is it a straight tank? Can they compete at all? We're going to bring in Gilbert McGregor next to talk about that, and also the latest injury news to Tyrese Halliburton. Then we'll preview tonight's game without Halliburton tonight between the Washington Wizards and Indiana Pacers, and then preview the Pelicans-Warriors game, which could be competitive as well. We'll be right back with more NewsWire here on this Wednesday after the break. Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day.
I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yes.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those 2 plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars have, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. We bring in Gilbert McGregor to talk NBA in sporting news style. And back-to-back weeks, we start off talking about Ja Morant. 2 different stories, unfortunately, for Ja Morant. Gilbert, you were on the show last week. We talked about him coming back and playing well and just how much he meant to the Memphis Grizzlies. Now here we are again and talking about him missing the entire season. So range of emotions, I'm guessing, Gilbert, for everybody in Memphis right now.
It is unfortunate, Craig. You know, when you see the news come to your phone that Ja Morant's undergoing season-ending surgery, it's not exactly what I expected. It was Friday night. He's helping them beat the Lakers on the road. The next thing you know, you see him on the bench and his arm's in a sling, and now he's having surgery to end the season. And he finishes his season having played 9 games, really picking up exactly where he left off last season, showing very little signs of rust, if any, averaging 25 points and 8 assists per game. And the Grizzlies look like they could turn their season around with Ja Morant in the lineup. Now, this is a team that's 8-20 without him. A lot of that had to do with the suspension that he missed 25 games for. But when he came back, he seemed to have put that behind him. And now it's really just a bummer for him, that team and that organization, especially in a season in which they've dealt with injuries to Marcus Smart, Luke Kennard. Steven Adams also had season-ending surgery before the season even began. So now they're kind of back to square one. They're building around Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart, who's back in the lineup now. It's an opportunity for them to see what they have and really kind of focus on the future. I don't know if they can turn the season around or not, but I think that they will get a lot of meaningful reps for Jackson and Bane. And when Ja Morant's back next season, they can pick up where they left off last season.
Yeah, it does seem like somewhat of a rebuild season for Memphis not having their best player, but remains to be seen. Again, play-in games, anything can happen. Okay, so the in-season tournament in the NBA was a big hit because of a lot of different reasons, but one of them was Tyrese Halliburton. He has been one of the up-and-coming stars right now, Gilbert, in the NBA, and certainly is going to be, hopefully he'll be healthy enough to play in the All-Star game. He's going to play in it. There's no question about that if he can. Halliburton, though, we got some good news after some bad news. He just has a grade 1 left hamstring strain. I guess if this was March, maybe we'd be talking about him coming back maybe next week. But because it is January, I'm guessing this is going to be weeks. But at least it's not months. Like, that's the good news from this. But he's been a star in the NBA.
He's definitely been a star. I think he signaled his arrival during that in-season tournament. And the big thing with this injury is really breathing a sigh of relief. Seeing the way he awkwardly slipped into a split and the way he was carried off the floor by his teammates. I think everybody was fearing the worst, but got good news in knowing that he's going to be out at least 2 weeks. And especially at this time of the year, you mentioned All-Star break and All-Star weekend. There's going to be an extended period of time in which he can kind of rest and recuperate once that time comes in mid-February. This Pacers team is more than just Tyrese Halliburton, but he's a big part of why they are who they are this season. And now seeing if they can kind of keep their heads above water in his absence, a lot is going to rely on TJ McConnell and Andrew Nembhard stepping up. And you can't lead the league in assists like Tyrese Halliburton does, but if you can fill in by committee and get some more scoring from guys like Buddy Hield and Bruce Brown, then the Pacers can kind of hold on. And once Tyrese Halliburton is back, they can continue to maybe make a run and be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference.
Well, the Pacers tonight would have been probably 15-point favorites if Halliburton was on the court, but he is not against the Wizards. They're 8-point favorites, though, tonight, Gilbert, and the total is 253. Washington, if not for Detroit, would be the worst team in the NBA. But look, it's a one-game scenario. Anything can happen in the NBA. I mean, Washington can win outright, for all we know. Any lean on this game tonight?
I actually like the Pacers and the points, and there are a few reasons why I do now. The last time these two teams met, the Wizards actually won, but Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole combined for 61 points. I don't see that happening again. I think the Pacers have that on their minds. Even without Tyrese Halliburton, they're going to look to get a little revenge from that loss. And also the Wizards just aren't as good of a team on the road. 4 of their last 5 road losses are by double digits, so I feel like they'll have similar struggles tonight in Indiana and have a tough time keeping up with that pace. Probably turn the ball over a little bit, and the Pacers will come out on top.
All right, so 8-point favorites tonight in Indianapolis. Again, total of 253 over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So Draymond Green, when this came out with Woj, it caught me a little bit by surprise because I thought this could have went the other way. But apparently, the commissioner of the NBA is trying to keep Draymond still playing in the National Basketball Association. Now, he's going to have no shortage of opportunities, whether it's media or other things when he's done playing. He's not going to be playing at the high level that he did when they were winning championships with the Golden State Warriors. But, apparently he's going to need another week. He's going to ramp up. And here we go again, Gilbert. We're getting like the 4th version of Draymond Green back with the Warriors again.
It's interesting, Craig, having a chance to listen to some of Draymond's comments about his suspension and about the time he took away from basketball and the Warriors. He did seem contrite in his apologies and really taking accountability for his actions. One thing you mentioned is that he's not as young as he once was, and that has a hand in him not necessarily being the same player that he once was, and the fire that he plays with has oftentimes towed the line of being antics and crossed the line of the antics that he's had. And so now, as he prepares to return to the floor, it'll be interesting to see, if he can stay on the right side of that line. The Warriors really have a very, very slim margin of error, if any, at this point in the season. Steph Curry needs a little more help. They've been up and down. Steve Kerr's been trying to figure out the lineup. So getting Draymond Green back, in theory, should help them from a leadership standpoint, so long as he kind of curbs the antics and really just plays with the fire that we're used to seeing him play with during the years where they were winning championships.
And generally speaking, when the Warriors have played over the last, 6-7 years, they've always been favorites at home. It's like a new day and age in the NBA for them right now. Obviously, New Orleans is good, but I mean, they're favored on the road tonight at Golden State. I will say it's a very short line here. The Pelicans are just 1-point favorite, total 233.5. Golden State's playing okay without Draymond Green. As you said, Steph just needs some help. He's not getting it. Is there any opinion on this game tonight in the Bay Area?
I'm leaning Pelicans in this one, and the under is also looking a little enticing for me. The Pelicans, similar to the Pacers since the in-season tournament, have really been playing good basketball. They've won 10 of their last 14 games, and the crazy thing to me is that 3 of those 4 losses are by a combined 5 points. So the Pelicans are really playing great basketball. It's also an early start in the Bay. It's a 5:30 p.m. Local start, and I think that impacts the home team a little bit more than it'll impact the visitors because they'll be thrown off of their routine. You're not really used to playing a home game at 5:30 during the middle of the week anyway. So I like the Pelicans in this one, just given the fact that they've been playing really well lately. Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, and Brandon Ingram have been moving the ball, and their offense has been flowing really well. So and Willie Green has some familiarity with the Warriors because he used to be on Steve Kerr's coaching staff. So all those things work in New Orleans' favor, and I like them as the road favorite tonight.
Light favorite there. By the way, before we go, News broke last night, Gilbert, that Eric Spoelstra for the next decade, barring some crazy change, is going to be still coaching the Miami Heat with a huge contract. It's very rare that you see something like this happen in sports where universally everyone says, great move, worth the money, all in, right? Like everyone wants to fight about stuff on social media and everywhere else, but you can't find anybody that says that this is bad.
Well earned, well deserved. 6 finals appearances as the head coach there, 2 NBA titles, been with the organization since 1995, and is the perfect heir apparent, for Pat Riley once he eventually steps down. I know Pat Riley's in his 70s now, but Eric Spoelstra really does embody that Heat culture as well. So once Pat Riley decides to call it a career as an executive, Eric Spoelstra will be a head coach and an executive for this Heat team, and I couldn't think of a better person to do it. And he's going to continue to lead this team to excellence as he's done last year, and he'll continue to do.
Yeah, surely will. All right, Gilbert, great to see you, and good to see you after the new year here, our first time getting together. Thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig. Looking forward to doing it soon.
All right, Gilbert McGregor joining us from Sporting News. Coming up next, we got Jim Gazzale joining us, talking a little sports wagering. We'll head on over to Kentucky and see what the landscape looks like for sports betting in the Bluegrass State. So go ahead. Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cup, so now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those 2 plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. One state where sports betting obviously could take major prominence is the Bluegrass state in Kentucky, especially with the Triple Crown Challenge coming up, Kentucky Derby just a couple of months away. Let's bring in our horse racing expert and our sports betting expert from Legal Sports Report. Jim Gazzale is here with us. So we start off with one of your favorites, Jim, in Kentucky today. And thanks for being on the show. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. My pleasure.
All right, so let's get right to it. We knew that Kentucky was always ripe for sports betting. They've had arguably the most exciting 2 minutes in sports, where before sports betting was legalized, you could always bet on the horses. And now it looks like some early returns are coming in from Kentucky as well. What do they say?
Yeah, so it's been a good, positive, strong, as projected start in Kentucky. And what kind of stuck out to me in their initial report that they put out a handful of weeks ago was more on the retail side. And as you know, Craig, that we've talked about it a bunch. They put the online licenses run through the racetracks in the state. And the most popular in-person retail sportsbook has been Red Mile in Lexington. So I reached out to the staff there and just wanted to get an overall sense of how the early days of Kentucky sports betting had been going for them, and why they thought that perhaps that they were the most popular location so far. And they shared a couple of interesting little tidbits. And any sort of brick and mortar business, they always say that the most important factor of being successful is location. And centrally located is Lexington, Kentucky. So one point that some executives there made was that they didn't really have access to the other surrounding states that had legal sports betting. It was still a number of hours of a drive away to get to Ohio or Indiana even. So when they opened up in Lexington, they were expecting a big influx of local bettors coming in to place their wagers, much more so than a city like Louisville, which is essentially right on the border with Indiana, and they could shoot right across there prior to Kentucky sports betting opening up and go into Indiana and place their bets. One other interesting thing, and maybe this is kind of showing my old soul nature a little bit, but one of the interesting things that they shared with me too is that the sports betting kiosks that they have on the grounds there at Red Mile, they do about 70% of the business. So people aren't really all that interested in walking up to an actual human being to place their bets. They walk in, they head right to the kiosk, they punch their wagers in electronically, it prints out a slip, and off they go. The executives at Red Mile told me that those kiosks do about 70% of the money and 70% of the tickets at that particular location. And I asked them too, what was one of the biggest challenges that they face in operating a retail location in, as we know, an online dominant industry. And they said there's a lot of competition in Lexington for that gambling dollar. So they need to give people a reason to leave their home, leave the convenience of the app, and bring them into the sportsbook with different events, different autograph signings, something creative and thoughtful to get people out of the house and into their facility.
Well, let's go from Kentucky to New York. And good news for Bet Rivers, a company that we don't talk about all that much. They're kind of flying under the radar. But, Jim, not financially. Very, very big fourth quarter for them.
Yeah, I thought this was interesting too, Craig. And like we talked about in some other states recently in the past couple of weeks, a lot of parlay talk, right? The parlay products for all of these different apps. And we talk about FanDuel and DraftKings a fair bit. So the numbers in New York over the last quarter of 2023 for Bet Rivers really stuck out to me. It was their most successful quarter ever in New York in the last 2 years since that market's been open. They did 40% of their handle in the last 3 months of 2023, which I thought was pretty significant. And they also increased their annual revenue up over 50%, about 56% in 2023 compared to 2022. And a lot of that has to do with that parlay product in their app, making it easier to access the parlays, better pricing, and also making it easier to access better prop bets for their customers. So, obviously those product enhancements really lending itself to closing out 2023 on a positive note in New York for BetRivers. Overall, the New York market, its third straight month over $2 billion in handle in December. And they also set a revenue record, $188.3 million in combined online revenue for the sports books, a new record there. And of course, as we know, New York has the highest sports betting tax rate in all of the country at 51%. So when you hit a new operator revenue record, you're also hitting a new tax payment record. So those apps combined to send $96 million back to New York State in December. And just real quick, speaking of taxes, there's 3 months left in the New York State fiscal year. And through the end of 2023, $647.4 million has been sent back to New York State in taxes, putting it pretty close on projections for that full fiscal year. The state projected $896 million in tax revenue for fiscal year 24. So they're right on pace for that. I think it'll be a little close as we get down to the wire here at the end of March. But we should also see how much tax projections that they're expecting for fiscal year 2025. Those projections are expected to be released at some point next week.
Okay, great stuff, Jim. And now we go from New York's sports betting to a potential groundbreaking move in sports betting as well, but this is on the horses. Now, for people, and we've talked about this before, for people who are unfamiliar and maybe don't bet on horse racing, the odds are moved. They're constantly moving. You could bet on a horse, then the race goes off, and you have different odds from when you bought your ticket. This is unlike the NBA or Major League Baseball or the NFL where you're locked in. Now, this has been a rite of passage for horse racing for a long time based on the pool and the amount of people that are betting. Jim, is there a realistic chance that when you make a bet on a horse that you actually get to keep those odds in the future? Because this would be groundbreaking if indeed that is the case.
Yeah, there is a bill circulating at the Capitol in Albany here in New York that would legalize fixed odds horse betting. And a few states have it already, though admittedly it's not all that popular. New Jersey adopted it a handful of years ago, and it's been available, but kind of slow to gain a little traction. We're going to see fixed odds horse betting roll out in Colorado at some point in the next handful of months. But New York would be one of the larger horse betting markets to feature it, should it come about through the legislature. This is the third time in the last 3 years that a bill to legalize fixed odds horse betting has been submitted. It obviously hasn't gained much traction in the past, though I did speak with some horse racing industry people earlier this week, and it sounds like there's a little bit more backing, a little bit more interest, and a little bit more momentum behind this bill this year. Still, obviously, early on in the legislative session, that all the lawmakers just returned to town a couple of days ago, and still a long ways to go. But we'll kind of see how that progresses. And to your point off the top there, Craig. Yeah, with the pari-mutuel system that horse betting features, those odds fluctuate as money enters and exits the pool. So a lot of times with a lot of frustration that horse players are dealing with right now is you have these large computer-assisted wagering groups that can automatically place gigantic wagers at the last minute, driving these wild fluctuations in the odds as the horses are breaking from the gate. There's been some things put in place to mitigate that a little bit, but at the end of the day, that money's coming into the pool. The odds are fluctuating and changing and leaving those pari-mutuel bettors a little bit, uneasy about seeing a horse that they thought they were going to get 10-1 on go off at 5-1. So fixed odds would prevent that. Like you said, you'd be able to lock in that price when you place your bet. It would also expand the wagering menu, make it mirror a little bit more like sports betting. And, I think that would appeal obviously to the younger generation that is, growing up more accustomed to that sports betting style, that sports betting menu.
Yeah, and I think that it would get people more interested in it because, again, horse racing, not the most popular like it used to be, but maybe an influx of young people getting involved in that with the fixed odds maybe could make a good push for the future. Jim, great to catch up with you once again here on NewsWire. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. You too.
All right. Coming up next, Ben Stevens gives us the very latest on the AFC and NFC championship odds. Simon Applebaum's in the house talking sports television and streaming next. Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Weiss said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish here with you. The AFC and NFC playoff picture a little bit clearer now that we know who's in the dance in the playoffs. And even after this week, it's going to be a lot more clear with all the games going on in Super Wildcard Weekend. We thought we would take a look at the very latest odds with our guy Ben Stevens from the early line. He has a preview as to what we could potentially expect in both conferences.
Craig, we are about to enter the National Football League postseason. 14 teams still in the chase for a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 58 and that Lombardi Trophy. 14 teams, 7 in each conference. Before you can appear in a Super Bowl in Las Vegas, you need to win a conference championship. So we look at both conference odds, where things are right now in the AFC and the NFC. We start in the AFC championship numbers, where the Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 overall seed, have that shortest number. The favorites entering the NFL playoffs at plus 125. Craig, I direct your attention down to Buffalo, the 2 seed in the AFC postseason picture, a plus 280 price, $1.50 about of separation between Baltimore and Buffalo. The Kansas City Chiefs, who have played and hosted an AFC championship game each of the past 5 NFL seasons, that 3 seed and the 3rd best price at plus 490. Now, Craig, we look at the highest wild card seed. That would be the Cleveland Browns at 12-1, the 5 seed in the AFC. The Dolphins are the number 6 seed in that AFC playoff picture. However, a shorter price by $3, 9-1 in front of Cleveland. The Browns will take on the Texans to start off Super Wild Card Weekend, 25-1 for Houston. And the longest price, Craig, in the AFC and of the 14 remaining NFL playoff teams, that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, 60-1 right now for Mike Tomlin's crew to win an AFC championship. Now, over to the NFC, where we have a minus money odds-on favorite. That would be the number 1 overall seed, the San Francisco 49ers, minus 130. Craig, we anticipated at some point in this postseason, San Francisco would be an odds-on favorite. We just didn't know it would be at the start of the NFL playoffs. But that is what the odds makers believe on this Niners club. Minus 130, the number 1 overall seed. Second best price, the Dallas Cowboys, plus 350. In the Eagles, Craig, on the slide, losers of 5 of their last 6 to end the regular season. Third best number, plus 750. Philly, of course, has to go on the road to Tampa Bay to start off the postseason. 31-1 on the Buccaneers. The Packers, the 7 seed, the longest price in the conference, 39-1. And a matchup between Detroit and LA to start off this opening round of the playoffs as well. Plus 950 for the Lions, LA at 21-1. And Craig, part of the reason I believe that San Francisco is an odds-on minus money favorite to win the conference championship and appear in Super Bowl 58 is look at the 2 and 3 seed right behind him. Not necessarily postseason pedigree or experience for either Dallas or Detroit. Of course, the Cowboys have not even reached a conference championship game since their last Super Bowl victory in 1995. The Detroit Lions are looking for their first playoff win in more than 30 years. So those are where the conference championship odds stack up entering the NFL playoffs.
All right, thanks very much, Ben. Of course, you can catch Ben on the early line tomorrow morning, and you can see me on there as well with Donnie Rightside. Now let's bring in Simon Applebaum. The podcast tomorrow will be televised, going over the very latest in television ratings and streaming and all kinds of news and business as it pertains to sports on TV and streaming. I feel like, Simon, I have to always say TV and streaming. Now, if we were doing this show 5 years ago, I wouldn't have to, but people are consuming that way like they are our show. I feel like it would be disrespectful not to say it, but thanks for coming on the show. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you, Craig. I'm happy to say that here in New York, the storm is over. We're back in the sunny weather. We have a couple of breaking news stories. Full Speed, the NASCAR Netflix series, is now going to be on starting on January 30th. The National Women's Soccer League contract, the new one that just signed a few weeks ago, gets underway on Friday night on ION. They will run the NWSL draft, 14 teams in play. And on a personal note, on Tomorrow Be Televised on Friday, for the very first time, we will have the President and Chief Executive of the TV Academy, the folks behind the Emmy Awards, Marty McIntyre, will be with us and a live interview. The TV Academy really does this kind of thing. They will do it with us Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We'll talk about where the TV Academy stands, the Emmy Awards on Monday night with Anthony Anderson hosting on Fox, how they respond to the Golden Globe debacle that was on CBS Sunday night, and a whole lot more. So that's very, very special for us. And one more Emmy thing. Sports Emmys are coming up in a few months. counts. Kevin Harlan should definitely be a play-by-play nominee based on what he's done all year. And if anybody doesn't think so, check out the wonderful commentary he did on the Jacksonville Titans game this past Sunday on CBS.
In that game as well. Okay, speaking of finishes, the national championship was, I don't know, Simon, it was compelling, until the game started, and then it was, pretty apparent that Michigan was going to impose their will. The Huskies hung around for a while. I think, at least for advertisers, they were probably happy with that. That third quarter, the game was within 7. What did the end result make of this in terms of viewership, eyeballs on Monday's championship game?
25 million viewers, Craig. That is the most for ESPN's coverage of a college football national championship in 4 years. So the advertisers are very, very happy. It did come near 26 when the game was close, as you mentioned, in the third quarter. Had Michigan not pulled away and Penix got spoofed from Washington, it might have even gone maybe 27 to 30 or 28 to 30 million viewers. But ESPN is very, very happy. And going forward, this is going to have a very, very good impact on whether ESPN keeps the entire college football championship situation under the expanded 12-team format, or whether an Amazon, an Apple TV, a Google through YouTube picks it up. There's, by the way, reports back and forth on this. There's a report out this morning that ESPN is already talking with the NCAA about taking the entire package starting this fall, the 12-team playoff, or that there's other reports that Amazon, Apple, other people might be in the hunt for it. So I think things are going to get worked out a lot quicker than we think over the next few weeks. But bottom line, ESPN has got to be over the moon with what happened on Monday night.
Also have a new contract incoming here with in the NCAA, Simon. How is this outlined as far as the money is concerned, and what exactly will we be seeing?
Well, this new contract, I understand, is short of $1 billion. It's 8 years. It goes into 2032. It makes sure that the NCAA sports that ESPN already carries, some with ABC, stays on. Women's basketball, the women's side of March Madness, women's volleyball, which has done very well for them in ABC in recent weeks. There is one catch. More of the championships, the actual championship games, are going to go to ABC. The women's basketball one is going to ABC. The women's volleyball one that was just held a few weeks ago, that's going to ABC. So ESPN, which has been cultivating these events on their side of Disney, are going to lose the championship games to go to ABC. Now, there was some talk earlier that the women's basketball package might be, given what's been happening the last year or two, might be strong enough to be negotiated separately. But as it turns out, that was not the case. Still, big win for ESPN, super win for Disney.
Okay. Now, a story that I'm a little familiar with here, Simon, so we could get into this, is, for people who are not familiar, Major League Baseball is taking over some of the broadcast rights for teams that are having defunct contracts with Diamond Sports, a.k.a. Bally Sports. And interestingly enough, Simon, it looked like Amazon here wanted to jump in on a little bit of a buy low, saying, hey, look, we'll give you some money for the broadcast rights. Simon, baseball, it looks like smartly has said, we're not going to do this. We can probably make a lot more money doing this ourselves in the future. So I don't know. Maybe it's not over. Maybe Amazon does step back up with another huge ask here. But for the time being, it shows you, I think, what the future looks like for the broadcast rights of Major League Baseball's teams that are not going to be paid for by Diamond Sports.
And more than that, Craig, it is definitely a power play by Rob Manfredi, the head of Major League Baseball. Basically, he threw the gauntlet down on Amazon, said, no, you are not going to just jump in there and take over these regional sports networks. We want a say in how our sport is handled, whether it's on regional sports networks or whether it's putting more games on MLB Network, which we control, or getting more on broadcast stations. And this is, by the way, I think the second such power play. Remember at the end of last week's thing, we talked about the ABC deal where they are now getting a weekly Wednesday night basketball game, which would have been part of an ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader. Incidentally, that first game in that series, which is running at least all rest of this month, it was the Bulls-Knicks game, 1.3, 1.4 million people. So I don't think anybody is really happy on either side of the fence. Here's why I'm talking about that. Because I think Adam Silver is saying to ABC, ESPN, and also sending a message to Turner and TNT is this. In our next NBA contact, we want more games on broadcast television. That is still where some of the action should be at. After all, ABC carries the NBA Finals. They carry this package that happens on broadcast It was Saturday night. Now it's Wednesday night. We want more games on broadcast. Just like Manfred is saying, we want more games that we control, whether it's broadcast or cable or mega content services or the likes of an Amazon on television. So with these two leagues and these two headies leagues, I think you're seeing more of this power play to try to have a major role in how these contracts are negotiated. So keep in mind, I think Amazon's going to have something to say about this to MLB and Manfredi, and certainly everybody's on notice who wants to get that new NBA contract that this is what the NBA wants, and you're not going to bypass them.
No, it's the leagues are going to be in control if indeed there's no contract, and why wouldn't they be? It does make sense. All right, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas is in the books. A lot of exhibitors, a lot of news coming out of there, Simon. What do you think the most significant piece that you learned over the last week or so?
Two things. One, I think this is the year that the smart home, the smart TV set becomes a hub, maybe the hub, for everything you want to do in your smart home apartment. If you want to trigger your appliances, if you want to look at who's at your front door, if you want to know how your home security system is working, that's how you do it. I thought LG, TCL, and especially Samsung made some very important announcements in that front. But in one way, we may have seen the precursor for sports betting. Now, last night there was a sports betting panel that FanDuel was at. I got to think that everybody on the betting side, FanDuel, DraftKings, so forth, are all still at CES, which continues, by the way, until Sunday. And I think there were two very important developments on this front. One, Samsung, at their presentation Monday, announced a project called Daily Plus, where you'll be able to do very interesting errands with your television, whether it's to check on the latest weather report or stock quote through your TV, to maybe arranging a veterinarian visit for your pet. This could be a way that a sports bet could be triggered. Then yesterday, Telly, which is also showcasing at CES, that's the dual-screen smart TV show set that wants to become the iPhone or television, they announced that they're going to be offering a voice assistant powered by ChatGPS, artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is the big topic of the entire show, that through artificial intelligence, you will be able to say, "Hi, Telly, do this. Hi, Telly, do that." I have to think that may be a stepping stone for placing a sports bet. And we know on the record from interviews I've had in the MRB Televised with Dallas Norris, Chief Strategy Officer Telly, that they want to put a sports betting effort on the air, a sports betting app. So I think sooner than later this year, you're going to see somebody pull the trigger because of these new features on smart sets, whether it's a voice thing, whether it's a video thing, to do a sports betting app. Keep your eye on this Telly voice assistant. I think this is huge with ChatGPS, and I have a hunch we'll see other people try to duplicate it.
All right, Simon. Well, great stuff as always on the show. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll check back with you next week here on the program. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome, Craig. Take care. All the greatest.
All right, Simon Applebaum here with us on the show. All right, you don't normally see a head coach go in on the referees in sports in general because they know a big fine is coming, and that's going to happen for the head coach of the Toronto Raptors. You may want to stick around to hear what he had to say about the outcome of the game between LA and Toronto last night. This is NewsWire on SportsGrid. Craig Mish here with you, and we'll be right back. Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
favorite. I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Cole's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars have, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yeah, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There was a huge free throw disparity between the Toronto Raptors and Los Angeles Lakers last night, to the tune of 23 free throws for the Lakers in the fourth quarter and just 2 for the Raptors. And the head coach of the Raptors, Darko Rajakovic, had some interesting comments after the game.
How's possible that Scotty Barnes, who is all-star caliber player in this league, he goes every single time to the rim with force and trying to get to the rim without flopping and not trying to get foul calls. He gets 2 free throws for the whole game. How's that possible? How are you going to explain that to me? They had to win tonight? If that's the case, just let us know so we don't show up for the game. Just give them a win. But that was not fair tonight. And this is not happening first time for us. Scotty Barnes is going to be all-star. He's going to be the face of this league. And what's happening over here during whole season, I've been holding it back. It's a complete crap.
Coach, do you feel like you're getting any explanations at all? That offensive foul, did you see, get any explanation?
No, there is no explanation. They just come up there, they review and they see what they want to see. They don't want to hear us, what we got to say. They don't want to hear the players. They don't just want to protect us. Over the game, they got 36 free throws, 23 free throws in the fourth quarter. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? How are we supposed to play?
Well, Darko's going to get fined a lot of money for those comments, but maybe all of the rest of the coaches in the NBA that are not part of the Lakers organization should pitch in and help him with that fine, because all this is going to do is place more of a light on the fact that at least it would appear that LeBron and Anthony Davis are getting all of the calls in the NBA, and then they're getting all the fouls. Now, will this change? Probably no mandate on that, but I think optically you'll start to see a change, and Darko probably got his mission accomplished. That'll do it for the show. Again, thanks to Michael Cohen for producing today. Great job. Thanks to Gilbert McGregor and Simon Applebaum for joining us on the program, as well as Jim Gazzale. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy the rest of your day here on Sports.